Hi, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. For anyone not familiar with your movie, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a sort of psychological thriller horror film about a young woman who lives a sort of isolated life in this house way atop the Hollywood Hills under the care of her lifelong nanny, and she recovers from a sort of undisclosed psychological break. And when she's finally advanced far enough where she's allowed to leave the house again, she finds herself inexplicably drawn to the young woman who she sees driving on the street, and that initiates a sort of increasingly invasive stalking of this woman's life, and then the sort of the vice tightens around all three of these women until, I guess you could say, things just sort of go haywire.
And one of the movie's stars is the great Barbara Crampton from a lot of the Stuart Gordon Lovecraft horror movies of the 80s. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, Barbara. I mean, Barbara's a legend. You know, we were really lucky to have the script find its way to her. She read it, she connected with it, and the more we talked about it, the more we sort of knew she was really considering it. It was clear that, I mean, there was really nobody else for the role. Setting aside Barbara's kind of standing and presence in the horror genre, she was tremendously talented and committed actress, and she brought so much to the film in front of the camera, behind the camera. She's incredible. So yeah, I was very fortunate to get the chance to work with her.
Where do you draw some of your inspiration from to make this movie? Because you're the writer of the film as well.
Yes. Well, you know, I was really, I guess it started out as a sort of character study about two really lonely people, and when I realized just how twisted and kind of disturbed their relationship was, I mean, at that point I was sort of off to the races. It was really easy to see all the possibilities present in this really just, you know, again, this twisted kind of backwards relationship between a caretaker and a patient. You know, where we're seeing that the things that are, the methods being employed to increase health well-being might not necessarily be the best thing for the patient. So it was a really interesting dynamic to explore. I also knew I wanted to make a kind of a daylight horror film. I wanted to see what kind of intensity you could build while sort of staying out of the shadows. I mean, so much of horror film is predicated on what's just beyond the shadows, and it was a really interesting thing to explore those sorts of themes out in the sunlight.
Did you do a lot of like studying into the psychologicalness of stalking and obsession, and people being kind of like you know, as introverted as she is in her story?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was the stalking component of it involved less research. I mean, I think we all kind of understand what it feels like to feel alone, to feel isolated, and to feel that maybe there's a possibility beyond what we're sort of noticing in front of us for a real happiness that maybe we don't feel. And so I think kind of personally that was coming from a place of, I can understand, I mean, however misguided she is, I can understand why she's sort of, I mean, if you want to call it reaching out to this woman that she encounters, because she doesn't understand what connection really is. And so anything that even resembles it to her, the main character, I mean, is a real exciting prospect. So, you know, the bulk of the research for me was into some of the physical aspects of the main characters experience the seizures and some of the, a lot of research into various mental disorders, and that was really where I spent a lot of time.
What movies influenced you growing up?
Growing up, I mean, it's a long list. I mean, I think like a lot of, I grew up in the 80s, and I think like a lot of kids from that generation, it's sort of, it all begins with Star Wars, that, seeing that kind of spectacle on a screen, not a movie screen, I was still too young for that, but seeing it on TV was just such an astonishing and captivating thing, and so I became a really kind of voracious cinephile early on, and so it becomes a line from movies like Star Wars. The Terminator 2 was a big one. Then you get into I'm starting to be early teens and understanding what films are, and at the same time as movies like Pulp Fiction are coming out in the theaters, and so the line sort of moves then through a lot of great American independent cinema of the 90s. But I mean, there's so many reference points. I mean, early Polanski is a big one for me. Repulsion, The Tenant, De Palma's Sisters, Body Double. I mean, I could go on and on. Mm-hmm. I think for me, what I've always been fascinated in most is genre films that rely on dynamic characters. That kind of synthesis of subject and kind of methodology and style is always really exciting to me. So I think that's definitely something that I'm always striving for in my own work.
If you have like one piece of advice to give to people who want to make their own film, because this is a feature-length movie, not a short film like your last couple films, like Quitting, that was a short, but Sunchoke is a full-length movie. How do you go about approaching the start of something like this, especially since you're the writer, it means you're the creator, you're the director, you're the producer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I think of myself as a writer first, but directing is as essential a component of the filmmaking process for me as writing. I mean, setting aside that it's a nice counterpoint to the isolating nature of writing, and that directing is kind of always collaborative in every way. And I think that it's also the best way to advocate for yourself as a writer in an era where it is, in fact, possible to make a film with your phone if you wanted to. I think taking that step of saying, I have a story to tell and I'm going to tell it is the most important thing that I've learned from the process. I mean, Sunchoke is my second feature. My first film, Negative Space, was much smaller. It was funded off of Kickstarter for very little money, and was essentially an experiment in can I make a film? I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and to spend any more time not doing it was a waste. And so I think diving in and advocating for yourself is really the most important thing that I could say to people who are trying to make their own films, because realistically, nobody's going to come and make it for you. People will help, for certain, but it's very rare that somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, I'd like to fund your film.
Yeah, I just completed a short film myself. I'd say it's like 90% complete. We have to shoot the outside shots at night this Sunday, but thankfully it's at one of the actresses in the movie. It's at her house anyway, so that completely works out and convenient. But there's no funding on the movie. I mean, I think the money went into buying water for everybody because it was 95 degrees outside the day we shot, and the air conditioning only is in one part of the house. So that's it. You know, the last 4 short films I've made have been made on like a you can do this. There's no budget, but if you want to do it because you like the idea, by all means, let's make a movie. You know, and the attitude's been pretty. Yeah, I want to make a movie. You know, I'm not like some big shot in Hollywood who's expecting $50,000 to be in your little short film that's all of 10 minutes long.
Well, that's the thing, you know, it's kind of the essential miracle of filmmaking, right, is that a small group of people, properly motivated, with the right set of skills, can do amazing things. And in the end, what separates somebody making a short for no money and somebody making a $10 million studio, you know, indie kind of feature is not, I mean, it's money, it's time, it's stuff.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of different things.
But there's really no substitute for that group of people who all want to be there, who love the process of making films. I mean, it's, you know, filmmaking is such a product-oriented medium. It's always about the end result. But for those of us making the film, the process is as important, if not more. And that, I think, is really where you get the chance to work with really great people, because when you have that group of people that everybody's there for, you know, the right reasons, as people say, it becomes a really dynamic environment, and everybody just wants to make something great. And there's no substitute for that.
Yeah, no, that's my attitude. I just want to make something great. I kind of, you know, this will be my last short for a little while because I have to focus on another project, which is a comic book that I am self financing. So,
well, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's the key for me has always been just always be working, you know, always be making things. It's, as I said, there's nobody's going to show up and make your dreams come true. And everything that we can do as artists and filmmakers, and, you know, to kind of create our own space in the world is vital. And remarkably enough, we're at a point in the kind of landscape of the business where you can, in fact, I mean, the means of production are in our hands. We can shoot films with our phones if we have to. You can post them to the internet. The barriers are so much lower than they were even 10 years ago. It really, I think the onus is then on the filmmaker to say, you know what? I'm a filmmaker. I'm going to make a film.
True. What do you got? What do you? Before we let you go, what are you working on next?
I've got 2 projects in the works. I'm hoping to get up and running in the next year. Wouldn't really be, I don't know, wouldn't be like to talk about either of them quite yet, but I mean, the common thread, I think, is character-driven thrillers.
Cool.
Violent, but always sort of underpinned by dynamic characters who are, you know, doing their best, I guess.
Sounds good. We look forward to checking them out, and we really enjoyed your film. We look forward to your next endeavor.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.